Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. This is episode 35, our series Muhammad, the man who changed the world. So, in our last episode, the Prophet ﷺ has come with a jama'ah, a group of 1,400 companions that have come to Mecca, the arch enemy, the nemesis, with the purpose of pilgrimage. And when you are in the state of ihram, a state of pilgrimage, as a man, you can't wear armor, you can't wear weapons, you basically don't even wear proper shoes, and so the Muslims are not in a state to have any kind of fighting. So they've come and they've made it very clear, we're just coming to make pilgrimage, O Quraish. That you hate us, no problem. You try to fight us. We are at war with one another, but we just want a visa for pilgrimage. And so you can imagine, and I gave the example of what's happening in Palestine and or Gaza and in Israel. That imagine the Israelis are, as we have blockaded Gaza, and you have this humanitarian convoy. We are not coming to fight, we're not coming to harm, we just want to do some humanitarian work. And how does the Quraysh stop this group? Because the Quraysh's policy and the economy is built on the premise that anybody may enter Mecca without any harm if you're coming for the purpose of pilgrimage, as the Muslims are. So the Quraysh, though, they have a deep resentment for the Muslims, and so they're breaking their own rules. And this also shows you something about true principles. When you're on the side of wrong, you're willing to break your own religious beliefs, your own fundamental beliefs when it comes to your enemies, because at the end of the day, your beliefs were not grounded in principle, rather it was on convenience. And so now the Quraysh, even though the principle was everybody is welcome in Mecca to make pilgrimage except the Muslims. The Muslims are not allowed to do it. And so when the Muslims arrived in just outside Mecca in Hudaybiyah, they were ambushed by the Quraysh, but Allah protected the Muslims and allowed them to return the enemies back to Mecca without any harm. Now, this is a political nightmare for the Quraysh. All the regional tribes are saying to the Quraysh, so what are you guys going to do? Are you really going to kill them? It's going to be a pure nightmare for them, for you. Rather, let's enter in some kind of political negotiation. We have now, there's a talks happening, like you have in the world now, when there's two parties fighting, then everybody goes to Switzerland or they go to Qatar and they have these diplomatic talks. So now this is what's happening. You have third party tribes coming to the Quraysh, and obviously the tribes, most of them, or basically all of them, are sympathetic to Quraysh. They're on the side of the Quraysh. So these are not independent third parties. It's like the Americans and the British. They are there to independently negotiate between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And rather, that's not the case. We obviously know which side they are leaning towards. So you have the same situation. And so the Quraysh says, fine, we will enter into talks, but it must be known we are not going to allow these guys into Mecca. Under no circumstances will they enter Mecca, because if they do, it will be a huge embarrassment for us. So they send one envoy after the other. So we're going to go through a list some of the negotiations between the Quraysh and the Muslims. So the first envoy or emissary that the Quraysh send is a man by the name of Budail, and he is a chieftain, a tribal chief of a tribe that lives between Mecca and Medina. So there's a tribe that lived in the desert, the Khuza'ah. They lived outside of Mecca. They are allies of the Quraysh, but they are technically a third party. They're not Muslim and they're not with the Quraysh. And so he comes as an independent broker and he wishes to negotiate. So he comes to the Nabi Sallallahu, and he comes to talk to the Prophet ﷺ, and he begins by saying, "Oh Muhammad, look, I've just come from the Quraysh. I'm here to tell you there is no way that you're going to enter Mecca. And by the way, I've had a look at the Quraysh. The Quraysh's mood is serious. They're not messing around. So my suggestion for you and your fellows are to leave this whole expedition and go back to Medina, because if you were to enter Mecca, you guys will be cut to pieces. I'm giving you a friendly warning to walk away from this." The Prophet responds and says that he confirms he has no intention of war. He says, "I have no other intention but to perform Umrah. I'm just here to perform Umrah in the holy sanctuary. And should the Quraysh embrace Islam, as many people have, my religion, I'm not forcing anyone to embrace Islam. If the Quraysh want to be Muslim, as others have, they are most welcome. But if they stand in my way or and prevent, and if they don't want to become Muslim, that's also fine. It's up to you. You want to accept, you don't want to accept. I've just My mission is not to force Islam on anybody. I'm simply allowing people the choice. If the Quraysh don't want to embrace Islam, that's up to them. But if they were to stand in my way and they were to prevent the Muslims from making pilgrimage, then I will surely fight them to the last man, and Allah's order must be fulfilled. Allah has commanded me to make pilgrimage, and I will not stop at Allah's command. Allah wants me to make Umrah, so I will perform Umrah whether they like it or not, and even if it means I must die, I will die trying. So Budail, um, he came to scare the Muslims. So his job was go there, tell them how strong and how ready the Quraysh are and how jacked up they are. That try to scare them away. This was the first tactic. Budail comes and he tells the Muslims how determined the Quraysh are. But after hearing the Prophet ﷺ and seeing the mood of the Muslims, he goes back to the Quraysh with the opposite. And he says to the Quraysh, look, these guys are even more determined than you. And these guys are really ready to go to the end. Are you willing to die for this? Because they're going to die for it. So in Budail's estimation, the Muslims are far more serious than the Quraysh. And he's telling the Quraysh, I actually think you must let them do their thing and go than to, this is not going to end up good for you. He actually changes by seeing the mood of the Muslims to say, oh Quraysh, I think this is not going to be a good idea for you. And the Quraysh says, basically, to hell with you, we will never allow them into Mecca. And how can you even suggest this? Do you want us to be the laughing stock of all of Arabia? Budail, get lost. So Budail is also, as the Quraysh starts dismissing these tribal leaders, they are withering away their political alliances. Similar like Israel. The more and more they are hostile, and the more they go against their own policies, like the world today, the policies of you don't commit genocide, you don't starve people. These are the principles of the world. As Israel breaks these principles, they diminish their political power. So Quraysh is doing the same. Their principle was everybody can come and make Umrah. Now they are the ones stopping it. And they are not listening to their advisors. And so Budail leaves, and he's obviously quite a bit annoyed at Quraysh's attitude. So now the Quraysh select another chieftain of a tribe close by, and his name is Hulais. Right? And Hulais is sent as an ambassador with the same story, convince the Muslims to leave. Now Hulais, the Prophet ﷺ, when he saw him coming, the Prophet knows who this man is. So all these guys are well known in the region, and they're prominent people. And the Prophet ﷺ said that Hulais and his tribe, they have a lot of respect for Umrah and for pilgrims and for pilgrimage and Hajj, and in particular Qurban, slaughtering. So what is Qurban? Qurban is you slaughter and you give the meat in charity. And the Muslims, part of the 1,400 Muslims came, they didn't only come alone, they came with a huge amount of camels with them. And these camels were meant to be sacrificed for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the meat distributed to the poor. So part of our Sharia, and you'd find this is an extension of the even the Jews, the Bani Israel, one of the biggest rituals is to perform a Qurban. In fact, they call it Qurban, that they sacrifice an animal, a cow or a goat or a sheep, and this is given the food. Allah says the blood does not reach Allah. Allah does not need blood sacrifices. This is not for Allah. Rather, you take your wealth and you basically spend your wealth and you feed a hungry person or hungry people. This is what Allah wants from us. And so the Muslims have brought with them, not only Umrah, they are brought hundreds of camels to be slaughtered and the food to be distributed between the tribes and the poor of Mecca and the pilgrims. And so the Prophet, and he sees Hulais coming, he says, take him to the animals. Before he comes to me, the Muslims should take him and show him the animals. And so on his way, they take him on a detour and he says, oh, what are all these camels? Why do you guys have so many camels? And the Sahaba says to him, these are the camels we brought to sacrifice as part of our Umrah and to distribute for the people of Mecca. But look, the camels are dying here in the sun. And remember, the camels have been standing now. They're not being cared for, or rather they're not being able to go and drink enough water, whatever it is. And so the camels are basically suffering here. These camels are meant for Allah. They are suffering here. Hulais does not even go and meet the Nabi Sallam. He already makes up his mind before he speaks to the Prophet Sallam that what the Quraysh are doing is completely evil, and this is blasphemous. How could you treat pilgrims like this? How could you stop people from making pilgrimage? How can you treat the camels which are meant for charity in this way? That he basically goes back to the Quraysh, and he lashes the Quraysh that this is completely unacceptable. This is immoral. This is wrong. This goes against our religion. So again, and I liken it to today, that even though the allies of Israel, even they have a level of morality that we don't kill children, we don't starve people to death, that you are the aggressor. And so the Hulais and his tribe, they are now seeing the reality. But these guys want to make Umrah, they are devoted, they want to worship God. They are in their pilgrimage clothing. They're not coming with weapons. And in fact, their animals are here for the poor. You are stopping them. So you are the aggressor. And he basically says that the Quraysh, you are in the wrong. And of course, the Quraysh dismisses him unceremoniously, like, you get lost. No one asked you about these things. This wasn't meant, you were meant to negotiate on our behalf, and here you're advocating for them. You get lost. So another ally breaks away from the Quraysh. So slowly but surely, the Quraysh's power their soft power is unraveling. The Quraysh now sends a very senior man, Urwa ibn Mas'ud al-Thaqafi. Now, if you remember, I don't know if we mentioned this, that remember when the Prophet ﷺ was in Mecca, and after Abu Talib had died, the Prophet left Mecca and he went to a city called Taif. So the next big city next to Mecca is the city of Taif. And so the chieftain of this city, one of the main guys of that city is Urwa. So Urwa is a very, very big guy. He's like the leader of a country right next to Mecca, if you will. And so of all the negotiators, the most senior guy that is being sent now is Urwa. So the Quraysh, again, they send their third envoy, Urwa. And Urwa is again with the same mandate. Tell the Muslims to leave. We will not allow them to enter Mecca. They need to go. We obviously can't fight them because it's going to be a political disaster for us. So let us go. And they asked Urwa, and Urwa was a well-known person. He's maybe in our terms, he would be like a senior politician, a prime minister or something. And he is being sent now to, again, bias towards the Quraysh, send the Muslims away. So Urwa comes in. And Urwa, he sits around and now he's negotiating with the Prophet, and he talks to him, and he says to the Prophet ﷺ, like, again, the Quraysh are quite serious, and the Quraysh are not making any jokes now. You have now caused so much disruption in the region, and the Quraysh are ready to fight to the bitter end, and the Quraysh the army is ready, and if you were to take one step further, you're going to be basically beaten up. And then he says, now Urwa says this, he says, and Muhammad, you've gathered around yourself a mixed mash of people that I don't even know, I can't even recognize. And you brought he says, like, you brought a mixture of all kinds of delinquents. Now, just take a step back. In the Arabian context, the only thing that gave you protection was your tribe. So Quraysh stood together, Thaqafi stood together, and your tribe was your means of strength. He says, I look around and I see here a Qurayshi, I see a Thaqafiya, I see a Aus and a Hazraji, I see all kinds of a mixed mash of people. You're not even one tribe. And you brought from you the most delinquent, the most the lowest and the poorest of all these tribes. You took the rejects of all the tribes and you brought them together. So he says, you brought a coalition of rejects of every tribe together, and you brought them against your own family and your own people. I mean, like, in his mind, it's like, how bad are you? You bring all these delinquents from all these outside tribes, you bringing them here to Mecca to fight your own family, your own Qurayshi family. And he says, and I'm telling you, from the looks of these guys, he's looking at the Sahaba, from the looks of these unknown, I don't know who these people are. None of them are like even prominent people. If the minute they are confronted by the Quraysh, you would see that they would run away from you and they would desert you. They would leave you alone. So don't think that you just got a bunch of rejects and fools around you, and the minute the Quraysh attacks you, they will leave you. And while he said that, someone from the back says, why don't you go and, it's a swear word, why don't you go and lick some XYZ of Allat? Well, what's he saying? So Allat is the idol of Urwa. Urwa, them used to worship idols, and the main idol is called Allat. Right, that's their idol, the idol of Taif. And someone shouts, like, why did, after he says, all these people around me are a bunch of rejects, delinquents, they will run away from you the minute you're fighting. And a Sahabi shouts out, hey, why don't you just go lick the private part or the backside of Allah? And he says, who said this? Who could speak so evil? And he sees Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Abu Bakr is so offended by Urwa's statement that he says, like, if you, our terminology, like, you know why? Because Urwa is saying, these rejects will leave you, O Muhammad, and you'll be killed by the Quraysh. And so Abu Bakr is so offended. He says, hey, Urwa, why don't you go, if you, right? So that's what Abu Bakr is saying. And so Urwa says, Abu Bakr, if it wasn't that I owed you a debt, I would have responded to you. So Abu Bakr did, and Urwa had some business, and Urwa owes Abu Bakr money, and so he says, consider our debt square. Now that you said that, I owe you nothing. Also, while Urwa is talking to the Nabi Sallam, this was normal, they would hold on to each other's beards. So this was just like a strange thing. When you would talk, you would hold on. I would talk and hold on to your beard, and you'd hold. Obviously, the Nabi Sallam never did this. He wouldn't do that. But Urwa doesn't know the etiquette of the Prophet ﷺ. So while he's talking, he grabs the beard of the Nabi ﷺ. He grabs the Prophet's beard, and while he's holding it, someone hits his hand with a sword, hits his hand, and Urwa, leaves. And the guy says, if you do this again, I will cut your hand off. And Urwa looks, who is this? And he recognizes, And then Urwa says to this guy who hits him, are you not, have you not caused enough pain for your family that you even want to add to my misery? This man who is hitting Urwa's hands off is a nephew of Urwa, and he's a Sahabi of the Nabi Sallam. So this Sahabi had committed a murder and almost caused Urwa's whole tribe to go to war, and so he ran away, and he ended up in Medina, became Muslim. Now he's a Muslim. He's saying to his uncle, don't you dare touch the face of the Nabi Sallam, and if you do it again, your hand will be removed. And so Urwa is like my nephew, have you not caused me enough pain that even now you're cause of misery? Eventually he sees, okay, I've given you the message, and he goes back to the Quraysh. So now, and this is an amazing statement, perhaps the most amazing statement that anybody made of the Sahaba was Urwa. So remember, Urwa comes to the Nabi Sallam. Just I want you to frame this. He comes to the Nabi Sallam, and his message is, look, Muhammad, the Quraysh are serious. They are ready to fight you to the bitter end. And you have around you a bunch of rejects, a bunch of delinquents who have no substance and value to them. And in that, the Nabi didn't respond. Abu Bakr responded. His own nephew Mughira responds. And so now his mind changes towards the Sahaba. So now he goes back to the Quraysh. And he says to the Quraysh, Urwa says to the Quraysh, O Quraysh, I have personally met the Emperor of Persia, and I met the Emperor of Rome, Caesar, and I met the Emperor of Abyssinia, Najashi, in their kingdoms. And I've seen how their followers engage with the Emperor. But I've never seen a king amongst the people like Muhammad and his people and his companions towards him. If Muhammad performs ablution, the companion Sahaba would not even let the drops of water fall to the ground, that they fall on the ground. And if if he were to spit, they would jump and catch his spit and rub it on his face, on their faces. And if he speaks, they lower their voices and they listen. And if he gives them a command, they are so quick to do it. They will not abandon him for anything. Like Urwa is saying, Quraysh, I have never seen a group of people more devoted, more loving, more committed to their leader than the Sahaba are to Muhammad. I've never seen it in my whole life. Any chief, any king in the whole world, and I met the greatest kings in the world, no group of people are more determined than the Sahaba of Muhammad. And therefore, I think you should let them come for Umrah and go, because they're not going to abandon him. Even they will literally die to the last man before they leave him. And so Urwa again is saying to the Quraysh, you're not going to get out of this one. I think it's best you just make them perform Umrah and let them go. The Quraysh, of course, don't want to hear this. They dismiss Urwa, and now the Quraysh are not sending any further delegates. Why not? Because every delegate that seems to go to the Muslims is coming back and siding with the Muslims. Everyone that goes and meets Muhammad comes back a fan of Muhammad. And so now the Quraysh are like, what do we do now? And so they are stuck. And a period goes by, there's a bit of a pause, and so the Prophet, peace be upon him, decides, okay, they've sent me 3 delegates. Let us send one of our own. Maybe we should now send somebody to speak to the Quraysh. And the Prophet ﷺ thinks about, who do I send? And he calls Umar, and he says, Umar radiallahu anhu, al-Khattab, why don't you go and deliver my message to the Quraysh? And Umar excuses himself, not because he's scared. Umar, like, look, we don't know how the Qurayshis are going to treat a Muslim that goes into Mecca. So Umar is saying, Ya Rasulullah, I don't want to go as the delegate. Not because I'm scared. Even if I know they're going to kill me, I'm not scared, I'm not worried about that. But if you want me to go, to be diplomatic and to make it nice and to negotiate with him, then I'm not the right guy. Let's say Umar is, diplomacy is not his strong suit. He's more abrasive. Rather, I suggest send Uthman. Uthman is a lot more diplomatic than me, and Uthman has a much bigger family. Uthman comes from a very powerful family. In fact, Abu Sufyan and Uthman are cousins. They're like first cousins. So Uthman has a good connection. And Uthman is a lot better at potentially getting through to the Quraysh than me. So he says, how about sending Uthman? And Uthman will be protected. And so the Prophet agrees, it's a good idea. And so he says, Uthman, his son-in-law, Uthman, why don't you go and inform the Quraysh, we're just here for Umrah, we're not here to fight. And so Uthman goes, and Uthman goes into Mecca. The Muslims don't know what's going to happen when he arrives. So Uthman goes in, and the Muslims are waiting for Uthman to come back. And they wait, and they wait, and they wait. And the day goes by, and no word from Uthman. Eventually, the Muslims are convinced, astaghfirullah, it can only mean that the Quraysh have killed Uthman. He's coming as an ambassador, and the man which everybody loves, Uthman is such a nice guy. The Quraysh are so bitter, they must have killed Uthman, and there's a mood that Uthman is dead. We'll continue inshallah next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.